Chapter 10. Thomas's life after that bitter birthday and the decisions he made settled into a new groove. A groove that was quiet, measured, almost monotonous, but for the first time in many years, consciously chosen by him. He firmly stuck to his resolutions. Alcohol disappeared from his life entirely. Even at family celebrations, he steadfastly refused to drink, ignoring both persuasion and surprised looks. His work, he had found what he was looking for: a position as a system administrator in a small, quiet company that developed software. The job wasn't particularly lucrative, but the most important thing was that it was calm. No sales targets, no conflicts with clients, minimal interaction with colleagues, a predictable schedule. He would come in, complete his tasks, monitoring servers, configuring computers, resolving technical issues, and then leave. No heroics, no ambitions, just a routine that didn't demand excessive effort. He continued taking his medication under the supervision of a doctor. His condition was stable, not perfect. Occasionally, mild apathy or anxiety would creep in, but these were only faint shadows of the storms he once endured. The pendulum no longer swung with wild amplitude. It had settled somewhere in the middle, perhaps leaning slightly toward to the gray side, but that was the price of stability. And Thomas was willing to pay it. He lived alone in a small rented apartment, having moved out of his parents' house as soon as he knew a job made it financially possible. He lived quietly, almost like a recluse. Work, home, books. He could read again, though not as much as before, and sometimes computer games, but without the former obsession. He had learned to appreciate the simple things: a walk in the park, a delicious dinner he prepared himself, a quiet evening with a book. But something was missing. There was stability, but no joy. There was peace, but no warmth. He was lonely, not in a mundane sense. He was used to being alone, but in a deeper, existential one. After all the losses, all the disappointments, and the realization of his illness, he had built an invisible wall around himself. He was afraid of new relationships, afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of being rejected because of his diagnosis, afraid of causing pain to others. He had resigned himself to the idea that love, family, and close relationship were not for him. His lot in life was to endure a quiet, lonely existence under the cover of medication and a predictable routine. He wasn't looking for love and didn't believe it was possible for someone like him. And just when he least expected it, she entered his life. Her name was Yelena. He met her in the reading room of the city library. Thomas had started going there on Saturdays. Not so much for the books, he could have easily borrowed them to read at home, but for the atmosphere of quiet, calm, and anonymity. He was sitting at a table by the window, flipping through some magazine on computer technology. Then she sat down across from him. "Is this seat taken?" she asked quietly. Her voice was low, velvety, calm. Thomas looked up and felt slightly thrown off. A woman was sitting in front of him, not a girl. She was beautiful, well-groomed, with intelligent, slightly tired eyes and a gentle smile. It was clear that she was older than him, much older. Later, he would find out that the age gap between them was 15 years. He was nearing 30, and she was, accordingly, in her 40s. "No, please," he mumbled, burying his head back in the magazine, but no longer seeing the text. His typical reaction to strangers, especially women, was the desire to hide, to become invisible. But Yelena was unlike the woman who usually made him feel panicked or awkward. She showed no flirtation, no pushiness, no judgmental attitude. She simply took out a book, put on thin-rimmed glasses, and immersed herself in reading. An air of calm confidence and inner harmony emanated from her. They sat like that for about an hour, in complete silence. When Thomas was about to leave, he accidentally knocked in her stack of books, sending one to the floor. He hurried to pick it up, apologizing. "It's nothing," she smiled. "Do you like London too?" she asked, nodding at the cover of the fallen book. Thus began their first conversation. About books, about music, about the city. Yelena did most of the talking, while Thomas mostly listened, interjecting with short remarks. But it felt surprisingly easy for him. He didn't feel tense, didn't worry about saying the wrong thing. Her calm tone, her attentive gaze, her genuine interest in his opinion, all of it was disarming. Their age difference. Yes, it was noticeable, but it didn't feel like a barrier. On the contrary, her maturity created a safe space where he could allow himself to simply be. They began crossing paths in the library almost every Saturday. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Yelena worked as an art historian, read a lot, traveled extensively, and had a broad range of interests and a wealth of life experience. She spoke of her travels, exhibitions, and the people she had met. Thomas listened, holding his breath. Next to her, his own world, constrained by work, home, and his battle with illness, seemed small and dull. But she never made him feel that way. On the contrary, she asked him about his work, his hobbies, modest as they were, and his views on life with genuine curiosity. Gradually, he began to open up to her. Not right away, cautiously, step by step. He didn't throw the entire story of his illness onto her. It was too frightening. But he did share about his struggles with finding himself, about periods of apathy and insecurity, about his feelings of loneliness. Yelena listened without judgment, without offering unsolicited advice, without any cliched reassurances. She simply listened, and occasionally she shared her own experience, her own struggles, showing him that she too had faced challenges and setbacks. Her acceptance was quiet but absolute. She saw him, not just his problems, but his intellect, his sensitivity, his vulnerability hidden beneath layers of defense. He realized he was fallen in love. This feeling was unlike anything he had ever experienced before. It wasn't the dizzying, almost manic passion he had felt for Aguilera. It was a calm, deep, warm emotion, growing from trust, respect, and emotional closeness. Next to Yelena, he felt calm and safe. He felt seen and understood. And he knew that he wanted to be near her as much as possible. One day, after another meeting in the library, he gathered his courage and invited her out for coffee. She accepted. They sat in a small, cozy cafe, talking about everything in the world, and time flew by unnoticed. Later, he walked her home. At the entrance to her building, an awkward pause hung between them. It was then that she stepped forward herself, lightly touched his cheek, and said, "Thank you for this evening, Thomas. I really enjoyed being with you." That moment became the start of their romance. A short one, lasting only 2 months, but profoundly significant for Thomas. Those 2 months were filled with quiet happiness. They met almost every day after work, strolling together through the city in the evenings, going to see art house films that both of them loved, sitting in cafes, or simply spending time at Yelena's place, listening to music and talking. Their closeness was not just emotional, but physical as well. And here, too, Thomas discovered new facets of himself. With her, intimacy was imbued with tenderness, trust, and mutual respect, free from any rush or pressure. Around Yelena, he never felt awkward or inadequate. He felt desired and loved. He couldn't believe his happiness. He, Thomas, with his daunting diagnosis, his baggage of past pain, and his scars, was loved. Loved by a smart, beautiful, accomplished woman. And he, too, loved, deeply, calmly, and consciously. This realization that he could love and be loved in return was a revelation. It turned all his previous perceptions of himself and the world upside down. Eventually, he decided to tell her about his illness, not right away, but when he found the courage to do so. He chose a night when they were sitting at her place, drinking wine, and the atmosphere felt especially intimate and trusting. He spoke hesitantly, stumbling over his words, afraid of seeing fear, pity, or even disgust in her eyes. He told her about his diagnosis, about the manias and depressions, about the hospital, the broken relationships, and the job losses. Yelena listened silently, holding his hand in hers. When he finished, she said very simply, "I suspected that you had faced difficulties. But that doesn't change anything, Thomas. It's a part of you, but it's not all of you. I see you, and I love you." In that moment, Thomas felt the last wall within him collapse, the wall of fear and shame. Her acceptance was complete and unconditional, and it was incredibly healing. Their romance was idyllic, yet from the very beginning it was overshadowed by the prospect of separation. Yelena had never hidden the fact that she was preparing to move. She had a job waiting for her in Israel at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. It was her long-held dream, her professional opportunity. She had received the offer before they even met, and she wasn't planning to turn it down. She had been honest with Thomas about this almost at the very start of their relationship. Of course, this news saddened him, but he understood her. He couldn't and didn't want to hold her back. The knowledge that their time together was limited gave their relationship a unique intensity and value. They tried to spend as much time together as possible, savoring every minute, every word, every look. There were no arguments, no grievances, only tenderness and an understanding that they needed to cherish what they had in the present moment. 2 months flew by like a single day. The time came to say goodbye. Yelena was leaving. They spent their last evening together, talking about the future. Her new life in Israel, his plans, which now didn't seem so bleak to him. They reminisced about the funny and touching moments of their short romance. There were no tears, only a gentle sadness and immense tenderness for each other. At the airport, he held her hand until the very last moment. "Write to me," he asked. "I will," she promised. They hugged goodbye. "Thank you for everything, Lena," he whispered. "And thank you, Thomas. Be happy," she said, and in her eyes he saw warmth and genuine care. Then she walked toward the boarding gate, waving goodbye to him. And then she was gone. He returned home alone, his heart holding that bittersweet blend of loss and gratitude. He had lost her, but he had gained something much greater. That encounter, that brief romance, turned out to be truly life-changing for Thomas. Yelena had come into his life at a time when he needed healing the most. Not healing from bipolar disorder, his illness remained with him, but healing for his soul. Years of struggling with his condition, social isolation, failed relationships, feelings of inadequacy and shame had left deep scars on his heart. He had lost faith in himself, in people, in love. He saw himself as undeserving of happiness, doomed to loneliness. But Yelena shattered those beliefs. With her love, her acceptance, her wisdom, she showed him that he was worthy of love just as he was. That his illness was not a sentence. That he could build healthy, trusting, and warm relationships. That he was capable of loving deeply, tenderly, genuinely. And that he could be loved in return. This romance healed his heart. It mended old wounds, restored his faith in himself, and filled his soul with the warmth and light he so desperately needed. He realized that he was capable of intimacy, sincerity, and happiness. Many years passed. They kept in touch for some time, but their communication gradually faded. They each moved on with their lives. Yet Thomas still remembered Yelena with immense fondness and gratitude. She was like a guardian angel, sent to him during the darkest period of his life. She didn't stay with him forever, but the gift she gave him, the gift of a healed soul and faith in love, remained with him always. He emerged from that brief romance a changed man, stronger, more whole, more open to the world. He was still alone, but no longer felt hopelessly lonely or doomed. In his heart there lived a memory of Yelena, a source of light, a reminder that love was possible. And this gave him the strength to keep moving forward, despite all the challenges his diagnosis brought. His soul had healed, and that was the most important thing of all.